Welcome to the fourth session of Power BI visualizations. Today we are going to see a visualization which is known as tree map. This is a very important visualization where you have large amount of hierarchical data. So a tree map is something which can actually display a lot of data. Now let's see, in our superstore data there is segments which are only 3 segments, but when we go into subcategory, the number of subcategories are very large. So let's add category and in detail. So we will be dividing the data from segments to subcategories. So we can add details subcategory is there, and we need to know what is the quantity of sales in each data. So our value is here. Now what does it mean is that in in each category there are different subcategories, and how each subcategory is coming under different categories. So according to the value, this tree map, as you can see, actually this image denotes a lot of information. So let's see what is a tree map. So tree maps display normally the hierarchical data as a set of nested rectangles, which you can see from the visual itself. Each level of the hierarchy is represented by a colored rectangle which is known as the branch node. Each branch contains smaller rectangles called the leaf node. So this entire light blue is a branch node, and inside that we have smaller rectangles which are called as leaf nodes. Now the Power BI uses a measure of value. Here the measure of value is sum of quantity. So what is the quantity of things that's sold? Let's measure another value. Let's get the profit as the value. So now this rectangle shows the profits, sum of profit. What is the profit earned by each category? The rectangles are arranged by the size of the largest branch node, top to left. So largest one will come on the top at the left, and then smallest will come at the bottom of right side. So that is the way it is getting arranged. So if we know the structure of the tree map, we can say the average values comes in the middle, the topmost on left side and the rightmost. So it's easy. Visually it's easy to compare the data. The Power BI uses measure values to determine the rectangle size. The measure value means here sum of profit is a measure value in our particular example. The rectangles are arranged with the size with the largest branch node at the top left and smallest at the bottom right. The arrangement leaf nodes within each branch comes in the same order. Consider a scenario where you are to analyze the clothing sales. What we need, whatever be the data, normally the sales data, it is visually represented over this thing. Now let's see what are the situations in which we can use a tree map. Tree maps have a great choice in the following scenarios, where we have to display a large amount of hierarchical data, and we need to present a large number of values that can't be effectively shown with a bar chart. So actually if we try the similar data on a bar chart, let's see what will happen. One second. Select the visual itself. See, it is actually exactly the same data, but it's not readily, we can't understand what is happening. The data sets are very large, but if we convert it into tree map, it is much easier and better for understanding. It can illustrate the proportions with each part and as a whole. So the size of the rectangles itself define how, what part or what is the variation as a part of a whole. It reveals a measure distribution pattern across each level of categories in the hierarchy. It shows attributes by using size and color coding, which you can see in the visual. It can identify patterns, outliers, which is the most important contributors, and what are the exceptions. So that's about the tree maps. Now let's move on to the next one, which is we call it as a gauge, which denotes the data values over the period of time. Now let's see what is our profit with respect to the sale percentage. Now it just averages and shows it that. So we can say the value that we have to gauge is our profit, and the maximum the profit can be is the sum of sales. So how much, if we put this gauge, it actually denotes, sorry, not the minimum value, minimum let it be 0, and we need it to be maximum value to be the sales. Once again, to drag and drop maximum sales. So we can say we have 1.10 of mil, but this is our total sales and this is our profit percentage according to our sales. So this is a gauge value. What does this gauge value denotes? We have a good level of profit, but an increase in profit can increase the revenue. So it is easily, we can identify the areas in which we have to reach, and we can actually see the deadlines. Normally the deadline target values are gauged so that the business managers can actually understand how the values are changing. So it's also known as radial gauge. So a radial gauge chart uses circular arc to show how a single value progresses towards a goal or a key performance indicator, KPI. The gauge line or the needle. So here this is the gauge line, or we can say it is a needle. Represents the goal or the target value. The shading represents the progress towards a goal, and the value inside the arc represents the progress value. And Power BI spreads all the possible values evenly along the arc from the minimum leftmost value to maximum rightmost value. So when we use the radial gauges are great choices in many scenarios, which can show the progress towards a goal. As I say, in business scenarios, target is one of the most important criteria. So whether we can achieve a particular target or not, this can be easily shown using the radial gauge, and it shows the health of a single measure, and it represents information that is easy to scan and understand. So anyone who sees it's self-explanatory in its nature. We have to represent, when we have to represent a percentile measure like a KPI is key performance indices. So that's about the gauge chart. Now let's move on to the next data. That's a very simple thing. It's a scorecard. What is a scorecard? When you say a scorecard is nothing but it just denotes a value. So you can see there is only one value. What a main thing about the scorecards are how it normally shows a summation value, and this summation, if we have a um, numerical value like sum of sales profit, it just adds it. It's very easy to understand what is the total profit, what is a row id. And but if we take the regions, a value like region, so we know there are four regions, so we just shows the first region. We here we can, what is, we can actually find the last region, or we can actually count the distinct regions. We can find total count of regions. So there are four regions in this. And last one, if we don't put count distinct, actually it gives the number of rows in which their region is the value. This particular data set contains 5009 data values. That's why this number is there. So now how this scorecard is easy. If we have an Excel and we put out customer ID, just first customer ID is there. Or if we need to know how many customers are there, there is 700, which is distinct. But sometimes the customer IDs are repeated in the data. So just see the how many customer IDs are there. We can actually find, no need to go through what is in the our data sheet. So scorecards are actually manual matrices. So it's certain matrices that lets power customers to curate their matrices and track them against the key business uh, objectives in a single pan. And actually scorecards are very direct element in Power BI, and it is actually widely used in Power BI. Now the next visual is similar to scorecard, which is multi-row card. Now let's see what it means. Normally, multi-row card is used to display data in a very grouped format. Now let's see. Let's add a multi-row card. We know that this particular data has four different regions, and we just want to know what is the sales, what is the profit, that kind of information in each region. So let's add first region, then let's find what is the profit in each region. Now let's see what is the sales in each region. So each region value, central, profit value, sales value, east, southwest. Now let's see what are the, what is the discount given in each region. So sum of discuss. So we can actually elaborately show the value. Scorecard denotes a single value. Multi-row cards denotes multiple values, whichever fields you need. There is nothing more. We can actually increase the font, reduce the font size like any other visuals. So we normally use the multi-row card to track our Power BI report or dashboard to multiple values grouped in a format, total load amount distributed over different purposes. So it is used to display the data in a group format, and resulting data value will be in a summarized form. Now moving on to the next visual. Next thing is KPIs, key performance indices. We know KPIs are the most important aspects in any business intelligence. We will have certain things that is shows how healthy our business is. These are known as the KPI factors. Now let's see different KPIs in key performance indicator cards. And for this particular example, let's go for the value as sum of profit. As you know, any organization profit is very important, and we have a target. We need our profit to be somewhere around our sales. It should match. So we can have our target as sum of sales, and let's see how our profit and over a trend axis. Trend, normally it's good to have a date information, so we can put order date here. When we insert order date, 1 second, I I just clicked outside, that's why it came like that. So we can just put, what we happen is to see is that there is a goal, but it's a lot of order dates are there, because this data around 5,000, it's a data comprising almost 3 to 4 years. So what we can do is that we can have date hierarchy added to it. Now what does this data indicates? If we go through, let's change the color. Okay, let's see the visual itself. So it's just to information how this varies over the data. Now format visual, so we can actually include other things in our trend axis. How do we include other things? Let's include segment. So this is a single, how the sales are changing over the this thing. So we have this particular sales, and this value, this is our goal. Now we are obviously profit is lesser than the sales, so we are less, 87% less than the sales data. Now let's see how sales and profit happens along different segments. So we can actually add segment into the trend axis. You have to remove this. We can add the segments over here. So what is a profit ratio with different segments is shown over here. A key performance indicator KPI is a visual that cue the communicates the amount of progress that made towards a measurable goal. So we use KPIs when a great choice to measure the progress. Answer the question, am I ahead or behind on? To measure the distance to a goal, answer the question, how far ahead behind am I? So we can actually give values to it. A KPI semantic model is contain goal values for a KPI. If your semantic model doesn't have contain goal values, you can create by adding data to your Excel or your file like that. So moving on to the next visual. Next one is a table. As we can see, our data set is a very large data set. Sometimes we need to directly see the things that is present in the data set itself. So for that, mostly the tables are very uh, good visualization tool which directly denotes data, but our data should be on a less amount of data, otherwise there is no point in creating a dashboard. So a table is a grid that contains related data in logical series of rows and columns. A table can also contain headers and row for totals. Tables work well with quantitative comparison. You are looking at many values for a single category. In the following example, let's see what a table does. So what we can see is that we can select the desired columns that from the table itself. You just add the desired columns. Now I just going to add segment, and now I got three segments: consumer, corporate, office. Now I'm going to add what is a profit in each segment. Now let's expand the tables. Then I'm going to add the sales. Now let's come with regions. So three segments, and each segment we will have four regions. So you can see consumer is four times this. East, south, west, central regions are included in the data. Now let's add the cities in this. So again, all the central cities on the consumer and every city is listed. Since it has a large amount of data, everything is done. It is very straightforward, just simple columns we added and they calculate the total. Here there is only two columns to see the totals, that is sum of profit and sales. Region, city doesn't give any total values, so they are not added. So that's about the sales. Now let's see some how we use or when we use the tables. It normally represents the numerical data by category in multiple measures. So displays the data as a matrix or in a tabular format with rows and columns. We can review, compare the detailed data, exact values rather than visual representation. Sometimes we need the exact values rather than visual representations. In such cases, tables are a great choice. So moving on, we can see one of the most important visualizations that is available with Power BI, that is metrics. So what is metrics? Metrics actually seems like exactly like table. It looks like table, but it is actually much powerful tool than Actually, the metrics are much powerful tool than tables. So let's see an example, and I will then explain what does a metric does. So we have rows as, let's add region and subcategory region, and we have something known as subcategory, not over here, the rows itself. Let's add columns, segment in the columns, and then we can have sum of profit, sum of profit, and okay. So you can see something in the region. I can add two different rows. Why it is important? First, let me increase the font. Actually, you need to see what does that data set means. Let's increase the font for the values. Okay, let's increase the font for column headers. Okay, now let's explain what does this table means. If we go to the format visual, we can see there are two things in the rows, that is region and subcategory, and then we have columns in the segment where the columns are um, consumer, corporate, home office, and total, and we have the values of the profit. Now what does it means is that we can get individual consumer total profit over here and the total in the central region, and this row indicates the total in consumer region. So this kind of totaling is not possible in tables. If we need sub row totaling, we have to use matrices. Now moving on, what is the difference is that I have added something like subcategory. So inside the central, every individual items that is sold is listed up, and we can have the totals for each one of them. So this is the main properties, and each region the data is given. So from this example, actually you can see why the matrix is different than the table. So matrix is a visual which is very similar to a table, but table supports only two dimensions and data is flat, meaning we cannot aggregate individually. A matrix makes easier to display data meaningfully across multiple dimensions. It supports a stepped layout. This is what we call it as stepped layout. The matrix automatically aggregates data and enables you to drill down. You can create matrix visuals in Power BI reports, highlight the elements with the matrix and other visuals. So individual cells or multiple cells. There are many features associated with the matrix. And let's see what are the scenarios where we have to use matrices. Mainly we use the matrices when we need to get sub values from the existing data. that we have to arrange our data in a hierarchical order, and when we arrange the data in hierarchical order, we need to get the data which is inside the data. In such situations, we use the matrix format. Okay, thank you for this section. Let's see rest of the Power BI features in the next tutorial.